Well, once again, good evening from the Oklahoman's video studio. I'm Dave Morris alongside the Oklahoman's Phil O'Connor. Tonight, our election coverage continues. And Phil, as you can see behind us, we're starting to see some election results, some early returns, some early precincts reporting from the Oklahoma State Election Board. We just spoke with Brian Dean from the State Election Board. He indicated things were going smoothly today as far as the results.
Yeah, and an early leader is Donald Trump, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody. The second and third places, I think, a little bit of a surprise in terms of Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. We have Ted Cruz in second place. We've got some really bright political minds here that we might want to turn to for some analysis on. And these are, again, very early returns. But it does show what I think we expected, at least in terms of who was going to lead the pack.
Throughout the night, we'll be talking with various experts, and joining us now on the phone, Jeanette Mendez from OSU, the head of the Political Science Department, and Keith Gaddie from OU, just in case the Sooners and Cowboys fans were upset. He's the head of the Political Science Department at OU. Jeanette and Keith, good evening. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Hey, happy to be here.
Well, any surprises that you're seeing so far? Your thoughts?
Keith, I don't know about you. I'm not too surprised right now. I mean, I'd been saying I thought Trump was going to do really well here. I predicted that Rubio was going to do a little stronger, maybe overcome Cruz. But other than that, it's kind of shaking out how I thought. I thought it'd be a close race between all three of them. But I thought Trump would probably be about 5 percentage points ahead.
Yeah, and Jeanette, I agree. And you and I were talking about this the other day when we were appearing with another media outlet. And Rubio. We were expecting a strong charge, and we've seen that underway. But it doesn't look like he's going to quite overhaul Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has been running a consistent first, second in Oklahoma, but Trump's been up in all the polling throughout most of the spring. And it doesn't appear that he's taken sufficient steps to overhaul Donald Trump, at least based on the preliminary results. Now, Jeanette, I mean, you and I were talking about the math before we went on air. If these numbers hold up, we're basically looking at a fragmenting of the delegate count. There are, 43 delegates that this state gets in the GOP primary. And Donald Trump should get, a little bit less than half of those if he holds at this level.
Yeah, it's going to, if they come in roughly at a third each, even if Trump's a few points ahead, I think the delegate split's going to be negligible. They're all going to walk out of here with something very similar to each other.
Can you guys help our viewers understand essentially how the delegate count works with the GOP vote and how that it's a proportional divvying up of the delegates? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Jeanette, do you want to take this one, or do you want me to go?
No, you go for it.
Okay. Any primary through March 15th on the GOP side has to use some modified form of proportional vote, okay? So what that means is that there are a certain number of delegates that are given to each congressional district in a state. So in Oklahoma, each congressional district is going to send 3 delegates to the National Convention. If you get over 20% of the vote in the district, you're eligible for delegates. Now, if somebody wins over half the vote in the district, they get all 3 delegates. Otherwise, they break out proportionally. Same thing statewide. For the remaining 28 delegates to Oklahoma, if you win over half the vote, you get all 28 of them. Otherwise, you have to get over 20%, and then you get a proportional share of the delegates. So if Donald Trump's coming in first with 40% of the vote, and Cruz has 25, and, say, Rubio has 20, for example, you take that 85%, these are the 3 people that exceeded 20% of the vote, and you're going to allocate the 28 delegates proportionally among their vote. Then you go into each congressional district and see how well they did. So essentially, everybody's going to come out of here with something. There's basically a participation trophy at this point for anybody who breaks 20 points.
We're talking with Keith Gaddis from OU. We're talking with Jeanette Mendez from OSU, some political science. Clearly know what they're talking about here, Phil. They're breaking down the math for us.
Absolutely. How about the Democrats, guys? Are you surprised? And again, these are early numbers, obviously, only 29% of the precincts, but Hillary Clinton with 50%, Bernie Sanders at 43.7%.
Again, I don't think I'm surprised. I had thought that Sanders was going to pull ahead. He had a lot of momentum in the last week in Oklahoma. I think his 2 big appearances in Tulsa and Oklahoma City drew massive crowds. And I just don't think that compared at all to what the Clinton campaign was doing. Secretary Clinton didn't come to Oklahoma. Bill Clinton did in much smaller venues. And so I think Bernie Sanders just kind of had this momentum on his side. And I think his issues resonated with Oklahoma voters. I think what he's talking about in terms of the economy, in terms of he was mentioning oil and gas, he was talking about college tuition. It seemed to really draw in enthusiasm. I actually saw Trump speak on Friday and Sanders speak on Sunday, and I think both of them just had massive crowds with a lot of very enthusiastic people.
Yeah, you know, there's an old tradition in this state of distrust for big things, big government, big banks, big corporations. And Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders both tap into part of that, each of them. I mean, Trump, it's really, very, very simple. It's very basic language. It's brutish. It's simple solutions, and then you have retribution for your enemies, right? And with Sanders, he's opening with retribution for the banks and retribution for corporations, and then talking about problems. Well, what's neat about both of them is, even though they start out with all this criticism, and they, at the end, with both of them, they're talking about the hope of doing something better. They're talking about fixing a thing. And there are a lot of people in this country and in this state that are looking for those kind of fixes, and they're resonating with voters. Jeanette, I don't know if you all have been seeing this up in Stillwater, but we've had a lot of Sanders contacting activity. Lots of ground game, lots of phone banking, lots of efforts to recruit canvassers, and a lot of active Democrats and independents are reporting almost no contact from the Clintons.
Yes, we've seen it too, and I mean, of course, being on a college campus, I think that's where the momentum is tilting towards Sanders. And I got to say, Keith and I were talking about this the other day too. The independents in Oklahoma are going to be really important on the Democratic side, right? So they get to vote in the Democratic primary right now, and our hunch is that that's going to swing towards Sanders as well. And so I think those are going to be really important numbers to watch, the extent to which independents turn out, and then if that does split towards Sanders, as we would expect.
Yeah, and you know, this is where the turnout gets interesting. I was going through Bill Shepard's polling numbers with him over the weekend before they released to 6 and 9. And one thing we saw was there was a much larger undecided in the three predominantly rural congressional districts, 2, 3, and 4. While in congressional districts 1 and 5, the Democrats and independents, very low undecided. Most people had made up their mind. And, you know, I think it's indicative of the two electorates. The Democratic and independent electorate out in the country is older, okay? It's heavily white, and it's less enthused. And it may be that this younger electorate in Oklahoma City and in Tulsa may be turning out for Sanders, and around the margins, it could make a difference in him at least winning both of those districts.
Good stuff tonight from a couple of good political minds right there. Keith Gaddie, Jeanette Mendez. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you participating.
Have a good night, guys.
You guys as well. Phil, that was good stuff right there. Good analysis.
Absolutely. It's going to be an interesting night. I mean, Sanders behind by 7 at this point, 6 at this point, but, you know, we got a long way to go. And it's interesting because we've had polling in the last couple of days that have shown this to be a very, very tight race, and even some that show Sanders a little bit ahead, but within the margin of error of the poll. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one finishes up.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, the Oklahoman's Owen Campfield and our man from Washington, Chris Castile, will weigh in perhaps from a national perspective to see how Oklahoma plays in the big Super Tuesday picture over a dozen states in play tonight. Stay with us.